Pre-release weekend is coming soon, and if you're like me, then you're hyped to play some Sealed. Pre-releases are always fun and pretty casual events, where you can just mess around and enjoy cards. They're great events for new players looking to engage in organised play, however it can also seem pretty daunting. The idea of throwing together a deck in a time limit from a limited card pool is a stressful prospect, and even the more experienced players can often struggle with knowing how to build their deck. As an avid fan of limited formats, I decided to help make this an easier task by releasing this series, where I will review every card in BT9 and give it a ranking in order to help save you some time when evaluating your pieces on game day. We'll be starting today with a look at all the common cards, which are going to make up a significant chunk of your card pool. Before we look at the cards though, I want to quickly explain my ranking system so you can understand exactly how it works. I'll be assigning each card a letter grade out of S, A, B, C, and F. S-rank cards are the bombs of the format, powerhouse cards that are hard to deal with and will likely set you up to win the game the moment you play them. These are cards you desperately want to see in your pool and will be willing to lower the overall quality of your deck in order to maximize their potential. A-rank cards are not quite as strong as the S cards, but still pack a fair amount of punch. Likely your game plan will revolve around getting whichever A or S cards you have in your deck out and letting their strength carry you to victory. B is what I call strong filler. These are cards that will mostly just be used to bulk out your curve and keep your deck consistent, but they have reasonable upside and can put in some decent work. C is weak filler. Again, you run these just for the sake of curving your deck out, but you'll nearly always cut them for something better if you can. And finally, F are cards that are basically unplayable, either because they're completely outclassed by the majority of comparable cards, they have no synergy in the format, or they require so much setup it's nearly impossible to get value out of them in Sealed. With that established, let's jump into the rankings. We're starting off with Mini Digimon, one of a cycle of vanilla 2 costs with 3k DP. This card gets a rank of C as it's not particularly bad, it's a cheap body that holds up against other level 3s, but that's really all it is, and in general I'd prefer something more functional in my deck. Next is Mini Digimon's evolved form, Atama Digimon. This vanilla actually gets a rank of B, because 7k DP at level 4 is no joke. Sealed is much more aggressive than constructed, and being able to quickly accelerate into a reasonable attacker and start doing damage is a valid strategy. Growlmon X Antibody is the first X Antibody card in the format that we're going to look at. It's important to note that as with every other X Antibody Digimon, the regular version of the card is not present, and so the zero cost evolution will never see use. With this in mind, I give Growlmon a C because it has good DP, and while its inherited effect can come up, there's not too many effects for it to work with in the format, so this card is close to being a vanilla. Crabmon, like Mini Digimon, gets a C rank for the same reasons. Each of the cards in this cycle will be receiving the same. Abedramon gets a B. I've found in Sealed you're often going to be hard playing level 4 Digimon more often, so having a 3 cost that's still strong enough to swing over all the level 3s in the game is very nice, and I'd be happy to include this card to fill out my level 4 slots. Chaos Gamamon is another C. There are very few blockers in this format, but having a card that can prevent that line of defense from the opponent is useful. Similarly to War Growlmon, it's almost just a vanilla card, but in the situations where the ability is online, it's far more relevant than War Growlmon's. Garurumon X Antibody gets a C. Largely, this card is the same as Growlmon X. The inherited effect is a nice one and is possible to get online in a couple of different ways, but you can never really count on it. Tesla Jellymon is another B rank card. Being able to make 2 attacks is very good aggression, and 6k isn't the worst. Get a small DP boost on this card and it can start to become a real threat. There's even the potential for some trash synergies from the cards you discard too. Piranimon is a C. This card might as well be a vanilla, as the odds of having 6 memory to play it out and get value from Rush are very low. Honestly, this card only narrowly escapes F rank because this is Sealed and there's a slightly higher chance of getting big memory passed over than normal, and its stats are fine, but I probably wouldn't be running this card without a Metal Piranimon in the deck too. Divamon is a C. It's a cheap evolution with a good body, capable of getting in an attack or 2, but nothing remarkable. Metal Piranimon is just okay and gets a C. It's a common level 6, which is nice for filling out your curve and can potentially get you a good turn if you have the Piranimon to go with it. Specific card combos are always tricky and Sealed, but at least both parts of it being a common make it so this one has a decent chance to work out. Toy Agumon is the yellow entry for our rank C vanilla level 3s. Pillowmon is the first F rank card on the list. There are very few plays that its ability is going to impact, so in a good chunk of your games, it just does nothing, while also costing more and having less power than the vanillas. You may end up sideboarding this in if your opponent somehow has lots of play Digimon effects, but I don't foresee that ever happening. Salamon X is the exception to the X antibody pattern in that it actually has something to evolve on top of. Even still, all it's going to do is net you an extra card, and is kind of unlikely you'll be in a position to use it, so I think it only gets a C. Darmon is a relatively cheap card with fine DP, pretty much the definition of C rank. Gatomon X actually gets a C despite being unable to evo for free. Its stats are fine for its cost, and the inherited effect can be quite useful early in the game. If it wasn't for the fact that there are so many 3k level 3s in this format, this card could well have been a B. Dark Super Starmon is a B rank card. 9k is quite big for a level 5 and does trump a lot of the Digimon in the set, making it a good attacker. This is also our first dual color card, and you'll notice as we go that having 2 colors always makes a card slightly better, just because it really helps with meeting color requirements for options and can have some other additional synergies too. Elecmon gets a B for being the highest DP level 3 in the entire set. This rookie is capable of attacking over every other, which is a nice option to have in your list, and also means it takes a little bit more of a commitment for your opponent to attack it back. Pomumon is the same as Pillowmon, and so also finds itself at F. Ninjamon again shares its stats with another card, in this case, Starmon. Like the former, it gets a C. Kuwagamon X gets a C. Normally piercing is very good in sealed and would significantly boost my impression of a card, but with so few insectoids for it to go underneath, it's just going to come up too rarely for it to place any higher. Leomon X gets a hard F. It is outclassed in terms of its stats by basically every single other level 4 in the game, and it requires some real work to get its ability online, specifically using an effect to get a Pungiamon X underneath it. Its only saving graces are that it has 2 colors and some minor synergy with some other cards, but these are so small upsides that it really doesn't save it. Zamielmon is not quite as good as Dark Super Starmon, but still gets a B. It's a strong attacker for a cheaper than average evo cost. I'd be happy to play it. Bearmon is the last of our vanilla rookie cycle and gets a C like the others it shares stats with. Tapiamon may only have 2k DP, but it still finds itself at A rank. There are a lot of dual color cards in this format, and DP boosts definitely matter in sealed. This is the only level 3 that is capable of boosting DP, and will probably always find its way into your list if you pull one, improving a large number of your attacks. Grizzlymon gets a C. It's the only level 4 in the set that costs 1 to evolve into, which is nice if you have the pieces to build a good stack on, but is ultimately a forgettable card. Monochromon is a B. Blockers matter in sealed, and this is the only pure blocker in the set. I did notice, however, that this set does have a fairly high average DP, which means most of the time Monochromon will just be there to chump a hit, but still, it's always nice to have an extra line of defense. Raptordramon narrowly makes it into C. Its effect is going to come up very rarely, but is quite good when it does, and the stats are fine. If I didn't have Alphamon, this would be one of my first cuts if possible, but it doesn't suck too much to have to run it. Loader Leomon gets an F rank. Yes, it's on the cheaper side, but it's just outclassed by practically every other level 5 in the set. They are all either stronger or have some upside. Gazimon X is just an overcosted vanilla in this format and gets an F. Salamon surprisingly gets a C. There are enough dual color cards of purple that this is going to have targets in a lot of decks. Depending on your exact list, it's probably a prime choice to cut, but chances are it will accidentally be a fine include. Sangloopmon is an F rank. There are only really 2 targets for this card's inherited effect, one of which is rare and the other super rare. Even then, the trash strategy it relies on is just not very consistent here. With only 5k DP, I really can't justify putting this in my deck. May Crackmon Vicious Mode gets a B. It's just a nice way to clear out a level 3 from your opponent's board while building your own, and its inherited effect works with a lot of other cards. Matadormon is a C in my eyes. Its your turn effect is basically irrelevant, but its when attacking, though a little tricky to get online, can lead to some very powerful swings. Flare Rock Soul gets a C. It's fine, cheap removal, but a lot of level 4 and up Digimon are going to dodge it, and with only one Shoutmon card to work with, it's not going to do much more than pop the odd rookie here and there. BB Thunder is another C rank cheap removal option. It's probably one of the worst removal options in the set, but it's hard to ever give removal an F, as even the worst of it can matter when checked out of security. Awakening of Gold Digizoid is an example of a card that asks for so much that it can only get an F. Not only are there only 2 low-level armor form Digimon in the set, Magnamon itself is a super rare. Even if you somehow have all of the parts together, it's ultimately not that impressive, as there aren't many big minus DP effects to worry about, and you could just evolve into Magnamon anyway. Seriously, don't use this card. Groundfang gets a B. It's a good bit of removal and nice to see in security, though as it only hits suspended Digimon, it's likely not going to save you from lethal. Still a good way to get rid of your opponent's most threatening Digimon though. Heavy Machine Digimon's Advance is slightly better than Awakening of Gold Digizoid, but not by much, and still gets an F. It's often going to just be dead in your hand, and the cards it's designed to support work just fine without it. You're going to be better served running something that at least always has a purpose. Kongo is a common S rank, which I did not expect to see. This card is just huge. Able to shut down a huge number of attacks, the tempo this card gets you is immense. At common, you'll likely have more than one of these, and getting them back to back is just going to cripple your opponent. What's more, at 2 memory, it's dirt cheap to play and allows you to keep pushing your aggression pretty effectively. Awesome card. X Evolution was something I thought would be too specific to work, but actually ended up at B. There's a pretty significant number of X antibody cards in the set that this can help accelerate you into. Not only that, there are quite a few cards that can be improved by having the ability to slip them underneath one of your Digimon. On top of that, it's a pretty fun card too. One of those that's always a little bit exciting to play, so it's nice that playing it can actually be justified here. Dexlution isn't quite as flexible as X Evolution, but still gets a C. The Dex line is fairly good, and this card helps get the value out of them. Thanks to sealed rules, it doesn't really matter what Digimon you have out, it will be able to go into a Dex. Obviously, easily cut if your Dex cards are low, but if you have a few, I think you're justified in running a copy of this. Lastly, we have Eye of the Gorgon, and we're ending strong on an A rank card. Able to pretty effectively kill opposing Digimon, even the few level 7s in the format that dodge most other removal, and with a chance of getting you a body, this card is one of the much better removal choices. Unlike Groundfang, this can pretty effectively hinder your opponent's attacks out of security, and so I don't see why you wouldn't run it unless you're completely screwed on purple sources. And those are the commons from BT9. There were quite a few to get through, and this set is kind of tricky to evaluate with so many cards that rely on other cards to function and a high average DP. Let me know if you think I did a good job below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you found this video useful, please drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe to see the rest of the series, which will be gradually coming out this week. Thanks for watching.